Hello and welcome to April Community Meeting. I'm Michelle Stewart, Executive Director of Yampa Valley Sustainability Council, and it's really a pleasure to see you all. Again, thank you for your flexibility and for popping over to a new meeting link. We did that. Good job. A little background about YVSC. We were established as a nonprofit in 2009, and we are guided by the mission to serve as a leader, resource, and catalyst for building a sustainable and resilient Yampa Valley region. These monthly topic-focused community meetings are designed to convene leaders, program partners, and community members for presentations and discussions on key issues and initiatives so that we can learn together, ask questions, connect, and find ways to meaningfully contribute to the sustainable and resilient future we need. Today, we have leadership from Apex Twin Enviro joining us as our featured speakers. As the new owners of the landfill and the largest waste recycling hauler in the Valley, YVSC thought that it was important to create a forum where Scott Lukach, President and CEO of Apex, and Scott Jenkins, COO of Apex Twin Enviro, can connect with the community partners and members and discuss their current practices and forthcoming plans to increase recycling in the city and Routt County and regionally. The timing of today's meeting and this discussion with Scott's and their teams are opportune, as you may have seen today, John Russell's article in the Steamboat Pilot and today describing Apex's announced shifts and services and rates. And so really looking forward to the conversation. Scott, when it's time, if you want to introduce other members of your team too, you're welcome. So I'm sorry if I didn't highlight all of the featured speakers today. But before we get going, I will quickly review the structure of today's meeting. We will have Apex will provide a presentation for probably the first 25 minutes or so, providing us with insight into their current and future operations and services. Following their presentation, we'll transition to a Q&A where partners and attendees can provide comments and ask questions. Attendees, please do hold your questions until that Q&A. You're welcome to pop questions into the chat during the presentation, but we won't have questions until the end. And then if you want, I'm sure there's a raise hand function on this as well, but we're all attuned to Zoom on our team. But please, you can unmute and make a sound if you'd like to ask your question yourself. But please do keep yourselves muted during the meeting when you're not speaking. So to transition to today's discussion, as you can see by the number of partners and attendees on this call and in the meeting, and the many people who said that they were unable to join for the meeting but will plan to watch the recording. Abby did figure out how to record this, so we are set there. But recycling and waste diversion is an important topic to many residents and business owners in the Valley. Recycling and diverting recyclables from the landfill is something that everyone can do in their everyday lives and something that many people want to do. Importantly, many people and business owners want assurance that what they put in their recycling bin is actually recycled, and that's important for a couple of reasons. First, when people are paying for recycling services, they want to make sure that what they're paying for are services rendered. And secondly, when people make the behavioral decision to divert waste and take the additional time to clean and separate material into the correct bin, they want to know that their behaviors had impact and that their time was valued. According to the 2022 City of Steamboat Springs Recycling Study, which was conducted by Lori Batchelor Adams Associates, Steamboat Springs waste diversion rate was estimated to be about 9% in 2022, which means only 9% of material sent to the landfill was diverted through reuse, recycling, or composting. That number was increased more recently by the City of Steamboat Springs Recycling Coordinator, Alicia Archibald, who estimates it to be currently around 14%. And the Routt County's last reported diversion rate was about 13% as of a 2014 published number. This is a relatively low number. I believe the state of Colorado still averages around 16% diversion, which is about half the national average of about 32% diversion. By adopting the 2021 Routt County Climate Action Plan, which you'll often hear of referred to as the CAP, the City of Steamboat Springs, Routt County, and towns of Hayden, Oak Creek, and Yampa have set a target goal of achieving 46% waste diversion by 2030. And that is a big change from business as usual. So to meet this goal, ultimately the city and the county need to increase waste diversion by about 4 times in about 5 years to achieve that stated CAP goal. The shift in ownership of Apex, being a new business owner and operator in the Valley, presents an opportunity to really move forward and increase diversion. In today's article in the pilot, Apex makes clear that they also have goals and financial invested interest to increase recycling and diversion. And I really look forward to today's discussion and the presentation by Apex and their team, which stands to be a very important step forward in moving the dial in diversion in the county, with that goal to really achieve CAP goals of 46% diversion by 2030. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Scott, who will be our two featured speakers, and then other members of your team as well. So Scott Lukach is president and CEO of Apex, and he brings over 24 years of waste industry experience into his role and work in the Valley. In founding Apex Waste Solutions with his partners, Scott saw a unique opportunity in the market to provide a higher level of customer service through tailored solutions and flexible offerings to residential and commercial customers throughout Denver. Scott is responsible for strategic growth and acquisitions as Apex seeks to expand its footprint in Colorado. Scott is a member of National Waste and Recycling Association, Detachable Container Association, Environmental Research and Education Foundation, and serves on the auction committee as co-chair, and Recycle Colorado. Prior to joining Apex Waste Solutions, Scott was the vice president of sales and mergers and acquisitions for Waste Corps of America and Rarig Pacific Company, working with some of the largest municipalities in North America. Scott Jenkins is the Chief Operating Officer for Apex, and he brings over 25 years of solid waste operational experience and work overseeing large-scale collection facilities to Apex and his work here in the Valley. Scott manages all operations at Apex Waste Solutions in delivering innovative, sustainable, best-in-class solutions to customers. Scott supports acquisitions and leads due diligence and integration efforts as Apex continues to expand in Colorado. Prior to joining Apex Waste Solutions, Scott served as the Director of Operations for Waste Management in Colorado and in Utah, managing over 1,100 employees. So at this time, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to Scott and your team at Apex. And please unmute, and we'll make sure that you're able to end with your sharing. So I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Well, that was a very nice introduction. I appreciate that. And can you guys hear me okay, just on your end? Okay, we're good? Well, perfect. Real quick introduction. We did Scott and Scott. Sitting here with us today is our broader team. We have Lewis, who is our sales person covering the Valley. Behind me, Steve Johnson runs our day-to-day operations here in Steamboat, and has been.
There's Luke.
Been in Steamboat for how long? 16 and a half years. Luke Tellier, he does our roll-off, and then off camera to the left here is Lacey Coop, our general manager of the site here at Steamboat. So really appreciate you having us, and for the nice introduction, Michelle. We're excited to talk to you, to the CAP and the broader audience today about some exciting news with our operation here at the Steamboat Eco Center that's going to take place over the last few months. And wanted to walk through, there's been some changes, and you guys saw in the newspaper. I didn't get a chance to read the poll because I've been in a meeting all day today, but some changes to the frequency of collection. We're going to explain a little around the whys that we're doing that, and then pivot to kind of the current state of our recycling collection facility and where we're going with our new MRF, which is going to be not only able to handle all the volume in the Valley today, but to Michelle's stated goals, it should be able to handle 5 to 6 times, as we grow and divert more over the years to come. So we're really excited about it. It did require some change, and I'll definitely open to questions along the way if you have them. But we'll jump into our presentation and kind of walk you through kind of our thought process there. But before I do that, Scott Jenkins, anything to add?
Not much to add. We appreciate the time today to engage, with the public and all the interested parties on what we're embarking on. We've been here 9 months, and really trying to transform what we're doing here and really align with the goals of the community and support the sustainability efforts of the community. So we're excited to share some of the things that we're doing.
Perfect. So we always start off with our values as a company, and when you look at it, what we do is very dangerous work. I always share that, it's the 5th most dangerous job out there. So safety is paramount, in our day-to-day operations, at our recycling facility, at the landfill. So, every morning starts with the safety protocol. And, Jenkins, I know this is near and dear to you.
Yeah, it surely is. And like Scott said, you can't take it for granted at all. You can never get complacent, especially when we're out on route, out on the streets, dealing with different weather situations. It's just something that's top of mind all the time. And we're starting to really invest in a lot of technology to help us on the safety front. And the investment there is around cameras in our trucks. And not only do we have cameras that are forward facing, a drive cam, also inward facing, but also around our vehicles. And we use that to be really proactive in our coaching opportunities with our employees and addressing any hazards that we come across en route, but really embracing technology to help, drive that safety and improve and make sure we stay on top of, the challenges that we face from a safety standpoint each and every day.
Yeah. And every decision that we make as a company is, we press against our goals, and you'll see environmental stewardship. I think that's great alignment. We've been active with the CAP for the 9 months that we've been involved. And, that the investment in the new MRF really is true to, supporting that goal. So why don't we go to the next slide? So, we recently communicated to some residents in the city of Steamboat that we were going to move from every other week to weekly collection. The reason the former waste management customers were already set up as weekly. The twin customers were set up as every other week within the city. Obviously, we provide some challenges. We have trucks. You probably have noticed. We can't reroute until we get consistent collection frequency. But also the bigger driver of getting aligned here on weekly collection is we want to divert more. We want to collect more material to feed the MRF, because actually, with this new investment, the more volume, the more economical the MRF is to stand up on its own and really get to, we're looking for a path to profitability on the recycling facility. So we believe by moving the 1/2 to weekly to get consistent across the board, that we're going to increase our recycling diversion by 10 to 15% from those customers that are moving to greater frequency. What we often see is container fills up, and guess where it goes? Back into the trash container. We've talked, the city has talked a little bit about kind of a pay-as-you-throw or variable rate concept. Most variable rates are weekly collection. So we had to make a choice to kind of go one way or the other. We think the best option for this community and the city is to go to weekly to help us, meet those diversion goals. Michelle talked about them. We're behind. We got, big aggressive targets. Lots of things going on in the state that are going to help, I think, in our efforts to get there. So we do believe that is going to increase the diversion by adding that greater frequency of recycling for those customers.
I just add there, Scott, too, where we've seen this increase, the 10 to 15%. We've seen that where we've implemented, we've gone from every other week to weekly recycling, and we've participated in that in other areas in the state, and we've seen that increase in volume through the system.
Yep. It's going to reduce confusion and improve convenience, especially for visitors that are here. So they know that their recyclables are going to be collected on a weekly basis. It's also, once we get to consistent collection for both trash and recycling, it's going to allow us to drive efficiency in our routing. Scott, talk a little bit more about that.
We're in the middle of that right now, and Steve Johnson sitting here in the back. He's participating in this right now. We've engaged another firm called Zynex to help us do a complete reroute of our system, all of our routes up here in Routt County. So all of our residential routes, all of our commercial routes, we're modeling that right now and working on that. And that's going to help with efficiency, cut down on mileage on the routes, truck mileage, and also allow us to pull some routes, some trucks off the street. And we'll touch on that a little bit later in the presentation.
Yeah, and some of the current challenges, there's been challenges with recycling. I think that hasn't helped Colorado, the state as a whole, over the years, and being more at par with maybe some other states across the country. But also, compounding that is just the remote location of Steamboat and getting those materials to end markets. So, current challenges, you need the right equipment, which we're going to talk more about. You have to sort that equipment and get it to end markets across the state, outside the state. Contamination is always a challenge with recycling. People that don't know what is the acceptable materials, I don't think they do it intently, but we really want to ramp up with this new investment, on education and partnering with Michelle and the city and the community and the county, for that matter, in ramping up communication with this new equipment. Commodity values, they've been, they bounce up and down, so that has been challenging. And when recycling was introduced in the 80s, commodity values were high, and we made the mistake of billing it as a free service. Well, the reality is, with the unknown value of the commodities, there's a cost to it, and we all know that. But we don't want to slow the momentum. We think there's opportunity, and we're seeing the increase in diversion. Compliance and evolving regulations. EPR is a big one that's coming in that we all have our eyes on, and really going to change a lot of things in 2026. And being more rural, transportation, that is a big factor and a big cost to what we call a small site rural MRF, which is what Steamboat has, and we're excited about it, and we're going to talk more about that. So we wanted to frame a little bit of what the current state, where we're at today. We've had 9 months to really understand the operation, learn our recycling facility at a core. And this system was a beta. If and I wasn't here, and this predates even Lacey, but former owner Les Lyman invested in 2015. Very small volumes were being diverted at that time. Those volumes have grown in the valley since then, but really inefficient. Scott, I believe right today that how many people are on that line?
Yeah, right now today there's 7 people on that line. So you have a lot of manual labor picking through the material, and just stepping back too, of making this commitment to diversion and recycling. We have a single stream system here to allow people to put recyclables into the cart together. It's not source separated. So we need to separate that and pull that apart. So that's what this system allows us to do. But it takes a lot of labor to do that with this current system. And also it's low volume. We can process about 1 ton an hour. And currently, as we put both operations together here over the last 9 months, former waste management and the Twin Enviro, we currently cannot handle all the volume through one of the 2 facilities. We cannot combine it yet. We just do not have the ability to do that and run it all through our existing MRF. So just because of the inefficiencies of this system, it was good back in the day, but it hasn't scaled to where the volumes are at today, or where we're looking to take the volumes to in the future. So there's just inherent inefficiencies with this system.
Yeah, 100% of it is being recycled and going down mountain, but we have to keep half at the downhill facility, which is where we're today, and then half goes to the recycling facility up at Milner. The new system will be able to take 100%, or not only today's volume, but if we doubled it in the next 3 years, tripled it, it could handle that volume.
And we handle about 300 tons a month right now in Routt County, in the greater area. And yeah, we're looking to double that and scale that. So we need to get ourselves set up to be able to do that and support that additional volume that's going to come into the system. Again, right now, half the volume gets sorted across this table, this Revolution table. If you ever get a chance to come up to the Eco Center, which is the Milner facility, you can tour this. And we run it about 6 hours a day, hand sorting through across this line. The other half of this volume that comes in every day goes through our downhill facility, and we just push it into semi trucks, what we refer to as transfer trucks, and transport that down to Denver. And unfortunately, as the stream has evolved with more and more cardboard in the stream, which they refer to as the Amazon effect, we get less and less material because it just doesn't compact as well into the transfer trailers. And right now we can get about 8.5 to 9 tons in those transfer trucks. And it's just because of the material makeup of all that cardboard that's now in this waste stream. And to make that more efficient as we move into this, the new generation of our facility here, we're looking to improve those payload capacity up to about 13 tons a load, so we can reduce the truck trips going down into Denver for further processing.
Yeah, you got, and you know, one of the bullets, you know, current state accepted materials, a little confusing. Twin used to take plastics 1 and 2. Waste management, because they were moving it, you know, through a transfer down mountain, would take 1 through 7s. Our new stated acceptable limits, which we'll talk about on the right side, is going to make it, simplify it, and we're going to take 1 through 7s, which is consistent with where EPR, some new, you know, the new mandates in 26 that are coming out. So, you know, current state, we've assessed, we've done a deep dive on this. You know, it is currently operating at a significant loss. You know, our hope with the new investment is, even with the current volumes, and even if we increase 20-30%, it's operating at less of a loss, which is a good thing. We do think that there is a path to a break even, you know, years down the road, but we're willing to make that investment. It's the right thing. We do not want to lose momentum. And actually, the CAP right now is really collaborating. And I think there's an exciting time in the state of Colorado. This is the right time to invest in the future. So, you know, if we jump to the right side here, coming soon, you know, we talked about this new investment will allow us to handle volumes for many years to come. We're going to bring consistency to 1 through 7s across all of Route County. One other piece, you know, beyond the city of Steamboat here, is we're going to also expand recycling to all rural customers. In the past, you know, not every customer wasn't always available, so we're going to make that available to everybody. It's going to help generate volume, and again, more volume helps stand the recycling processing equipment up, and so we are eager to do that and divert more. Jenkins talked about the reduced transportation.
Yep.
And you know, kind of reducing 1/3 of that in the truck traffic, even with the greater volume, because we have, you know, better payloads. And it's going to be a path to a more economically viable recycling system in Steamboat and Route County. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah. So we're currently moving forward. If you don't mind just going back a slide. Yeah, we're still. I'll touch on the upgrades to the MRF. So we're currently moving forward with the modifications, really the upgrades to our material recovery facility that's out at the Milner location. Again, we refer to as the Eco Center. We're going to remove this Revolution sort screen that's down there, that picture of the blue sort screen. We're going to remove that equipment. It's obsolete now. It just, again, can't keep up with the volumes. We've gone out, we've already purchased a new screen for this facility that can handle more volume. This again can handle about 1 ton an hour. The new screen that we're investing in can handle up to 10 tons an hour. So we're going to move to this new sorting screen. And also we're going to install a new baler. And phase 1 of the material of the upgrades at our sorting facility will just look to scalp off or pull out all the corrugated cardboard out of the stream, and then bale it locally with a larger baler, so we get heavier bales, so we can maximize our transportation and minimize our transportation costs, and go directly to the paper mills with that cardboard right here out of Steamboat. And then the rest of the material would be pushed directly into transfer trailers, where I talked about earlier, and we're looking to get a higher payload capacity of up to 13 tons, where again, we're currently at around 9 tons. And then that material will be transported down to Denver to a MRF that has more sorting capability than we currently have up here in Steamboat. They can pull all the plastics apart, the metal, the aluminum, the other fiber out of the stream. Phase two in the future, as we continue to grow the volumes, we learn more about where EPR is going to come in to support more of this investment. We look to have a fully operating MRF where we can do all the sorting here locally. That's going to take us to invest in the building. We're going to have to, expand the footprint of the building. We'll look to invest in some robotics, optical sorting, so we can do all the sorting ourselves here in the future. But that is 2 to 3 to maybe 5 years out, just depending on the amount of volume we can get into the system. Because again, we need the volume to support. You need some of the revenue coming from picking it up, and also the commodity value on the backside to pay for that investment. But we're looking at a two-phased approach in the upgrades as we're making a commitment to diversion in this community.
Yep. And just as it relates to the timing of the MRF, our goal is, we're going to have to, for about 4 weeks, shut down the eco center. So everything's going to go through our downhill facility. Our goal is let's call it midsummer, to have this new MRF up. When we do that, we're going to do a big ribbon cutting, re-up the education, reach out to our partners on this call, because I think it's a really, neat event. And this facility can support Northwest Colorado. It really can. So more to come on that, but there will be kind of a transition phase as we bring in the new equipment.
Yeah, we ordered the new equipment, so it's all on order. We're finalizing the designs, lining up the contractors. We got concrete work, we got installers, and we got to bring additional power up to the facility. So we're working through all of that right now. It's significant investment. We're looking this year to make upwards about $750 to $1 million investment in this facility through this first phase. So we're already put down payment on equipment, and already put some money down with some of our vendors too to secure their time to try to hit these timelines. Yep.
Jenkins, you want to just talk about some of the reduction post?
Yeah, I touched on it earlier. So as we're going through this and the increased services, going to weekly recycling throughout the city of Steamboat, and the upgrades to the material recovery facility, we're looking to have some, carbon offsets, because we know we're going to take at least 2 collection vehicles a day off the streets. And then we know with increased capacity on the transfer trucks through this first phase of the MRF upgrades, that we're going to reduce trips down to Denver by 33%. And also by improving our routing through this new routing software system we're using, we know we're going to reduce the mileage of our routes by about 25% a day too.
Yeah, so getting towards the end here, but this is just an example of our eco center, and we're going to really do a better job of promoting it, because it's a really cool thing for the community. Also, we've talked about a drop center, and more options here in town. But in these images, you'll see up in the upper left is the Milner Mall. Opens in summer. It's something that started many years ago, and we're going to continue to support that and invest in it. And it's just an example of all the different things that we offer. But if you look at what we're doing in this community, there's a lot going on. We have Milner Mall that we talked about. We're handling metals, electronics up at the eco center, organics to some degree on some of the wood chips, the recycling center, liquid waste, special events, PJs, roll-offs, residential, commercial. So really a full service offering that we are offering today, and we're going to do a better job of promoting it to the residents. But shouldn't be lost on us. We're doing a lot. There's a lot of cool things happening in this operation.
Yeah, and we're looking to even increase that more with C&D recycling and diversion, and working with contractors in town. Can we sort and divert wood waste out of the landfill? We already have some concrete diversion that we already do, and bring a crusher in and look for reuse of that inert material. So, we're looking to partner and support. And like we've talked about, hey, we own and operate the landfill, but this is the only landfill that should ever be permitted in this county.
Or needed.
Exactly, because we should preserve that airspace, by diverting more away from that landfill.
And I think that comes down, to really our presentation. And Michelle, I'll kick it back to you for Q&A.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that presentation, and we will transition to Q&A. First up, we have City of Steamboat Springs City Council President Gail Gary, who also serves as chair of the Routt County Climate Action Plan Collaborative Board, to start us off with some comments. So, Gail.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. As Michelle mentioned, I am grateful to be able to serve as the president of the Steamboat Springs City Council. And in that capacity, I also serve on the Climate Action Plan Collaborative Board as the chair. So, again, appreciate the opportunity to just start off with a couple of different remarks. And certainly, as Michelle mentioned, the CAP does have a goal of increasing our diversion rates by 46% by 2030, and certainly 85% by 2050. So, we do have a task ahead of us, and do appreciate your presentation today, Scott and the team at Apex, and really look to you as a partner going forward, and see you as playing a critical role, right, in terms of how we advance our progress and how we meet those various different goals. And I think from a city perspective and from the collaborative board perspective, we also see kind of your efforts to kind of consolidate the operations of the former Twin and the former Waste Management as opportunities to pursue and look at various different policies that are going to best serve our community and our needs, and best serve our residents. And so kind of focusing in on the city, we do have a goal to operationalize the climate action plan. And one of, certainly one of those components is to increase waste diversion and to make that, easier for our, for our constituents and for everyone who lives in this community. We did recently have a work session in terms of how do we incentivize recycling? How do we make this easier? So we are looking at a couple of different policies. I think, as Scott mentioned, you are looking at, pay as you throw. I think we're looking at that as, or volume-based pricing. So again, I think as was stated, if you have less trash, you're going to pay less, right? In terms of, you'll get a smaller container, and you should be able to pay less in terms of your waste bills. So we are, looking at that, and we know from kind of the research and the studies that have been done, and certainly when we look at our neighboring resort communities, there's proven, this is a proven way to increase waste diversion. And as I say, some of our other resort communities have much higher diversion rates as a result of, providing the pay as you throw. We also are looking at some other policies, including like single hauler licensing. So more, staff is looking at that, and more to come. So, would ask that everybody, just keep watching what we're doing at the council level, and we want input, we want feedback in terms of what you're experiencing and ways that we can, make this easier. And then finally, I will mention again, because I think, Scott mentioned, really excited about the Extended Producer Responsibility Act. And, again, I do serve on the advisory board. I serve as a representative of municipalities outside of the Front Range. And so I really do think that that has the opportunity to kind of revolutionize how we look at recycling and create, incentives so that we have not just recycling, but we can be confident that what's being recycled is also then being used in recyclable in markets, right? So we're creating that circular economy that incents more recycling, also reduces the use of the virgin materials, and gets us closer to our climate action plan goals. So I'll stop there, and just always encourage anybody, if you have, any questions or any comments, I'm certainly open. You can get a hold of me. And if you want to learn more about the extended producer responsibility and what that means for us, as was mentioned, we're going to start seeing, there's been a lot of work that's been done. Actually have an advisory board meeting this afternoon that I'm going to have to leave for, so apologize for that. But we do have, it'll be rolled out in 2026, and then they'll, kind of more to come. But ultimately, the goal is, this is most important, I think, to probably everybody on the call, is that the producers who use the packaging, whether it's plastic or whether it's paper, are actually going to pay dues so that they will then pay for a recycling infrastructure and a recycling system in Colorado. So that's ultimately the benefit for all of us as, consumers and constituents here in the state. So thanks again, Michelle, for the opportunity to share that information. And again, appreciate Apex and really look to you all for a partnership and moving forward in terms of, again, how we can best serve this community. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Gail. Appreciate it. So we are going to transition over to Q&A. Again, Abby has opened up the chat. In this one, you should just see it. There's a little button that you can click that shows chat over on the far right. So if people would like to type in questions, you're welcome. You're also welcome to ask them. I will pose the first one that has been asked by Mary Ann Ninger. Excitement, and I would say Mary Ann summarizes what will be a response, which is excitement around the ability for 1 through 7 plastics to be accepted. I think that you highlighted, Scott, before, the variation between Waste Management and Twin as to what was accepted also gave rise to confusion, and then people just being like, well, is anything, so I think it attributed to confusion, and then ultimately not the right materials going in the bins. And so when do you anticipate, is that a behavioral shift that you would like to see now in terms of people putting 1s through 7s in their bins across the boards, or is there a time frame by which you would ideally like to see that happen? And again, I would just say right now, I think people don't quite know, which ones would be accepted.
To reduce the confusion, I'd say everybody should start putting 1 through 7s in the recycling bin. But again, until we complete all the upgrades and manage all the volume through the Eco Center and the upgraded MRF, it's still going to be a split stream. Half of it will go down to Denver, and the 1 through 7s will get recycled. We will not be able to recycle all the 1 through 7s during this transitional period through our existing Milner MRF. So it'll just be a couple months until we get through that. But I think, to support the right behavior and get the 1 through 7s in the container, I would start doing it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. And I think that news, even I heard people being like, wow, having received the letter. So the letter that you wrote out, I think that people will be encouraged and excited to have that uniform ability to put all, 1s through 7s in the bin. So that's great. I would also like to share a question. I saw you at the city council meeting where pay-as-you-throw or volume-based pricing was of discussion by City of Steamboat Springs City Council, and that was approved, and so you have integrated that into existing services, and I would like for you to have an opportunity to clarify what is volume-based pricing for trash and recycling services. What does that mean? I think there's confusion as to what it is. Pay as you throw is one way people talk about it, and then volume-based pricing is another. And then tell us what that looks like as you're moving that forward. I recall I mentioned in the meeting too that 2 years ago, YVSC was a strong advocate of City of Steamboat Springs City Council adopting pay as you throw as one of the policies, because as Gail mentioned, it really is ascribed to be one of the key tactics or strategies to increase residential recycling successes and rates, diversion rates there. And so it is a win that that's now kind of the landscape within which you're building, operations and offerings. So what is volume-based pricing or pay as you throw, and how are you handling or offering that?
Yeah, great question. So when you and there's a third term out there that I'm probably would say more as variable rate, and it's really about in this market, it was predominantly a 95-gallon cart for trash. There were some lower sizes, 65 offered. It was usually due to space constraints. So as part of this program and the move to weekly, we also announced in that same letter that there's an opportunity. If you think you're going to generate less trash because you're diverting more with the more greater frequency on recycling, you can reduce to a 65-gallon cart. So that is generating less trash than a 95. And, you know, I think the encouraging stat is we've seen probably 100 plus customers call and say, hey, I think with this change, I can reduce down to it, which you get a reduced rate as a result of it. So, it'll be interesting to kind of see what that conversion is over the next 6 to 12 months. But, that's really the concept. Pay as you throw, variable rate. There's little nuances, and I think they mean different things to different people. But think of it as a variable rate. If I get a 95 for trash, it's going to be one rate. If I lower it to a 65 gallon container, which has a slightly smaller footprint, but not much, but it is 30 plus gallons less, you will get a lower rate. And we're seeing residents sign up for that.
Great. And then in some other cases, I know Waste Management in the Front Range too. I think your experience there was a third bin size, which was maybe 46. I might get the second number wrong, but I think around 46 gallons. And what are your considerations on that? I think it's the last city council meeting where I also saw you. There was the consultants that were advising on how to either the hauler licensing or permitting was the option of kind of putting in a space holder in the 65 or 64 gallon containers, and would love to hear your thoughts on that third size, its effectiveness, and what you're thinking.
Yeah, there's some challenges there. As we use automated equipment and continue to invest in our fleet, there is a lower size. It's a 35 gallon, but it is very tight, very narrow. It's very difficult with our equipment, sometimes falls into the hopper. And the other piece that's unique to this market is, these are all bear carts. And so there is an intermediate size in between a 65 and a 35. It's called a 46 or 48. It's actually a better configuration for our equipment, but I don't believe there's a viable bear cart option for it. So right today we offer a 65 and a 95 on that variable rate. And my recommendation is we stick with that because there's a lot of challenges from a clearance standpoint and also it getting thrown into the hopper in a cold environment. Our equipment is temperamental. Really like the 65 and 95 because it is configured for that equipment. 35 can be challenging to that.
Well, well, and I would add, not just the size of the equipment. Sorry, I'm off camera, but you hear me. Safety is a main focus in that as well, and why we want to automate our services, why we're looking at these fleets, why we think about this is the less the driver has to get out of their vehicle, the safer and the less risky we are. So there's other factors that kind of play into whether it's the container size or whether it's the operation. How do we best fit all of the things we're navigating?
Okay.
Yeah, so today we don't have that smaller size. 65 and 95s are the options we have today.
Great. Okay, I'm going to pop over to questions that are coming in. We'll start with Ben Weaver. Commercial dumpsters get fined for contaminated recycling. Do those loads all get dumped in the same recycling truck and therefore that entire truck contaminated and is no good? Or is that fee fine to help disperse the contaminated recycling out of the load?
Yeah, it's the latter, Ben. Great question. 9 times out of 10, a contaminated load still will get dumped in the recycling truck. Very rarely, unless the driver it's completely contaminated, maybe with organics and things like that, will we reroute the trash truck over there and notify the customer and document that through our camera system. But majority of the time, it's dumped in with the recyclables, and then that fine is to offset our contamination fine we'll get from the processor. If we're doing it ourselves, it takes more time for us to process, pull out the contaminants. We got to pay for the disposal on the back end. Or when it goes down to be processed by a third party, Waste Management, Republic, Eco Cycle, they'll charge us a contamination charge on that material also. So that's how it just offsets that.
And next one from Ryan Stone. What happens to 1s through 7s, plastics 1 through 7 that go to Milner currently?
Yeah, currently the 1s and 2s are recycled. The 3 through 7s are not recycled through our Milner facility currently, but our upgrades will allow us to recycle all the 1 through 7s. So currently we're not capturing the 3 and 7s at Milner, but that's only going to be for a couple more months.
And the reason being is that with the small volumes that we're going and still are going through that facility, those are low valued commodities. And so it takes more time, more resources to get them to in markets than the efficiency of it.
Great. A question from Wynn Kalman. Has Apex considered in phase 2 to haul materials 72 miles to the Eagle County Material Recovery Facility instead of hauling it all the way to Denver, which is about 156 miles? While Eagle County's MRF is currently dual stream, it is possible that Eagle will convert to single stream as EPR is implemented. We've been working for years to get adjacent counties to work together to allow for economies of scale. Rather than compete with an adjacent county's MRF, would you consider working with Eagle County?
Yeah, we can both jump in here, but we were just in Eagle County yesterday. We attended the city of Vales, the town of Vales city council meeting last night. But we're engaged with Eagle County. We're trying to work with them. It's a little bit of a head scratcher that they're not utilizing that MRF to divert more material. Our operation in Eagle County, we haul it down to Denver, just like our 2 competitors do currently, because it's a single stream market. That's what the customers, that's what the residents want. And that's the service level there in Eagle County. So yes, when it's a really good question, and we're working to engage the county to see if we can do something with that MRF. They've got plans to do something different with that MRF and turn it in maybe into a single stream facility. Scott?
I agree. I think we're open to it. We're trying to engage because it doesn't make sense, but it just doesn't seem there's a lot of motivation. Whole market's picked up single stream, yet they don't collect single stream there at the Eagle County MRF.
Okay. And another question from Wynn Kalman. Would you consider a drop-off option for trash recycling in lieu of the smallest bin to create a third option for volume-based pricing?
Well, we do, currently have the drop-off location here in Downhill. That was the former Waste Management, and up at Milner also. So I think we could work with customers on that.
I haven't thought about it, but we kind of offer it, but if that's where this goes, that might be an option.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
So yes, customers can drop at both facilities and pay for the volume they're sorting or disposing.
But we could look to integrate that into a fee structure and a variable rate structure too. They're willing to bring it to us in lieu of the 35-gallon container. Yep.
Great. And so for those that have joined, because we started a little bit late, I would like to hold until 2:10. Apex and your team, are you okay to stay on for a little bit? Okay. I apologize. It totally was not in our control, but I just acknowledge that we're running over the meeting. So thank you in advance for staying on. Another question from Ben Weaver. Do we know how much of the steamboat population of residential is in carts versus commercial residential dumpsters? Alicia might be a good resource for this, but from our viewpoint, the commercial residential dumpsters are more of an issue for making recycling happen versus the roll carts.
So Lacey, I'll probably let you take that one. You're closest to it.
It's a good question. I really don't have a data answer for you right now at the top of my tongue. So I guess I would agree with the back end of your comment saying that the commercial dumpsters seem to be more of an issue. Definitely been on the forefront as we were right at the back end of enforcing the recycling ordinance that came through on the commercial end. As you guys know, for many years, it's been enforced on the residential end that the hauler provide a bundled service, trash and recycling. And recently, the recycling ordinance enforcing it on the commercial end has gone through. And so that's been a lot of the discussion. I would say when we talk about contamination and we talk about like available volumes to really tap into, I would say that's on the commercial market.
Great. I have a general question. So you're collecting recyclable materials and then bundling them and selling them basically in commodity markets. And just general information, are some recyclables more valuable for you to recycle versus others? And are there some that are like, absolutely, people put these materials in the recycle bin?
Absolutely.
The commodity values change monthly.
I mean, the biggest answer would be if it's a recyclable material, we want to push the volume. So if it's recyclable, put it in your bin. Now, we've always talked about like the wish recycling, and if it's not recyclable, don't put it in your bin because you're causing like contaminants. If it's food contaminated, or if it's shredded paper or things that are not recyclable, that hurts the operation end, and that's where some of the costly things come into. But there are commodities that are more valuable. Your metals, your aluminums, and your tins are very valuable, and they're easily recycled and easily processed. The plastics become harder, but there are more valuable plastics than others, and that's why we talk about the ones through Tech 7s and the difficulties we've had through that.
Yeah, 1s and 2s are, in that spectrum are the highest value for sure. But there also is a lot of conversation going on in the state. We're looking for those hard to recycle, and we've engaged them. Our focus right now is to get the MRF going, but also on the back end, I think that we're going to look at better opportunities for the harder to recycle products, and partnering with some of the partners across the state to move this as EPR comes along, to just make them a little bit more economical to move out of market.
Like plastic film.
Yeah,
is a good
that's
example.
a hard one.
Yeah. And then another kind of big picture question, Scott, you bring like 25 years of experience, to the Valley. And in the energy sector, for instance, some people that are involved in the energy sector, like there has been more change and transformation of the sector in the past 3 years than, people have seen in 20 years. And so what is your kind of outlook or big picture view? It seems like there's a lot of changes happening in, recycling, in attention on diversion. And, tell us about your experience or kind of like your view on the sector now and the opportunities. And, do you see it as changing?
Yeah, it's changing. And I think, Colorado right now is at the forefront of that change with EPR coming. What Colorado does, I think a lot of the states, will follow with the plan. Execution, is critical, and we're really engaged with CAA to make sure it's a successful program and launches. But I think the cool thing is this is the first time, and I've been in the industry for 25 years, was big on the equipment side, product side, recycling. We used to recycle 80 million pounds a year when I worked for a container manufacturer. What's the cool thing to see is the producers are trying to make their packaging, primary and secondary packaging, more recyclable. There really is a conscious effort. You're also seeing producers, Coke, Pepsi, the big box, Walmart's, use just, secondary packaging, things that are more recyclable that will help stand up the profitability of recycling. So I think like a perfect storm is happening. If we can do this right, I think it's really exciting what we can see not only across the state with diversion goals, which are low for a progressive state. They're really low, and they should be better. And I think there's a path to that. So that's the exciting part, is to see really kind of in the whole circular model, total engagement on all levels, and from a service provider, we're being engaged by, we're having great conversation with the producer side and collaboration. So, that's the exciting part. We've talked a good game for a long time. It's the first time in my career that I've really seen, engagement, in the whole circular loop.
Yeah, I would just add too, I think what we're seeing too is the end markets stay domestically, which is going to help also. This is even before all this tariff talk. Where we're moving the material. If it's fibers, you got more of the paper mills coming back online here in the United States, and even the plastics, and able to recycle all the different plastics here locally, domestically. So hopefully that keeps the cost down and increases the demand for this material too.
Great. Thank you. A couple more from Ryan that I'll bundle together. You mentioned out at the Milner site, but will you be continuing to offer, or do you currently offer electronic, paint, or chemical recycling? And then a question, why doesn't shredded paper get recycled?
So the Milner facility, the Steamboat Eco Center, does offer an electronics drop. So the education on there is don't put it in your recycle cart. Definitely don't put it in your trash waste cart. It needs to come out to our drop containers in which we can properly
100%.
take care of electronics. And the reason why it doesn't go into the landfill is because it's hazardous and harmful for the future. Paints and chemicals, we do not currently accept liquids or hazardous materials, but we're exploring that, especially through the partnership with YVSC and talking about the drop site and the future of that recycling drop site. We're being engaged in those conversations. Why doesn't shredded paper get recycled? So it does. So to caveat that a little bit, it's because it's shredded and it's small particles. A lot of it gets lost in the operation. And I'm talking not just our MRF facility, but MRF facilities across the nation. And so it is a fiber. It does get recycled, but it usually falls through the sorting operation.
Yeah, it's really hard to recycle shredded paper through the single stream system. But if you're working with one of the large shredding companies that come around, the document shredding companies, they recycle it in bulk when they have it, and then they can bale it in bulk and send that as mixed paper to the mills. But going through the single stream curbside, it gets lost in the system. It's just too small.
And yeah,
Great. And,
added said shredded paper also contaminates other materials, which is true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that some places do accept it. When Windcommon was with YVSC, I think that she had asked a shredder provider where they were sending material, and I believe Eagle maybe accepts it. I might be wrong there, but so it's not universally accepted, I think.
Yeah, it's got to stay in bulk, and then they can bail it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then just also a reminder that electronics are accepted at the Recycles Depot, which is over in Riverside Plaza. Paint can often be taken to Sherwin-Williams or Ace Hardware if people have those. So they can't accept a lot, but those are kind of ongoing places. And then the household hazardous waste recycle drop-off is coming up with the county, and it's once a year, but I think that's a great opportunity for everyone to think about putting our heads together and getting a year-round place to drop off household hazardous waste. So chemicals and other caustic materials. So we have crossed over the promised 2:10 time. I just want to say thank you, Scott and team at Apex Twin Enviro for joining for the conversation. I want to really thank everyone for attending this call. I think that this is a really encouraging start of a conversation, and just really appreciate everyone coming together to talk about what's happening, for Apex, for creating a forum where people can ask questions and, respond to them. I think that's a really important start, of the next kind of opportunities to increase diversion. Really thank you everyone for joining. But if we can continue discussions. Gail mentioned write letters, and then also YVSC can be a place of contact. And then of course reach out to Apex directly and their team, and everyone can really work together. So appreciate the conversation. Lots of opportunity ahead. And again, thank you everyone for your accommodation of technical difficulties. This will be recorded. It has been recorded and it will be shared. And I had a lot of people ask for the recording. So that's good news. And I think an indication that this is a really salient and timely topic. So thank you all. Enjoy your day and appreciate it.